Hi. So I'm Lauren, Lauren Kelly. I work at Pantheon. The goal of this talk about engaging support systems is not Pantheon specific. There's some stuff in here that does deal with Pantheon, but it's not Pantheon specific at all. How many of you have sites on Pantheon that you work with right now? Okay. Do you? And all right, so my other question was going to be, how many of you are generally creating tickets versus getting tickets from people and then handling their tickets?
I'm sorry, repeat that question.
How, like, are you generally the ones submitting tickets for assistance, or are you getting tickets?
The latter.
Okay. How about the rest of you guys?
Ever recall working with tickets for Pantheon?
No, I mean for anybody, for any support, not Pantheon specific, but just in general of like, so are your clients, they're contacting you, so you're getting tickets from, yeah, and then, you know, if you're stuck, you know, all right. So the goal here was to talk about engaging support systems, and because things go wrong. And so part of what I did here is I had a fun time collecting some tickets that made me go, yeah. So sometimes things just go wrong. You have, you know, this poor guy live just shows a white page. Help. And things don't always make sense. You know, where you just have this long string of gobbledygook that's just showing up, and what do you do with it? And sometimes there's a change you can't make yourself, where you don't have permission to do things. Is that falling off the side? Yes. Yeah? All right. So, I was looking around for quotes, and I found this one, and I really liked it a lot. I think it fits the Drupal world very well. See, I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. I've lived it, and I'm still here to talk about it and help someone else if I can. And I think that that's something that we have unique within the Drupal community, that we've all felt the pain. We've all suffered through all the commerce stuff, right? You know, anytime I start talking about commerce systems with people, I'm like, yes, that was exciting. Those are great. You know, anytime, if you've, you know, gone through any of this stuff, but we're all willing to talk about it and share and help. So, like I mentioned, I work Pantheon. I'm in the support team. I do a lot of tickets. I see a lot of questions come in. And in the process of that, of looking at all the tickets and things, I started looking at, okay, what ideally, what would a dream ticket look like? What would have happened in this process? Right. And again, this isn't Pantheon specific. I am writing from my experience, but I'm writing from my experience as a developer and as a support person, right? So the first step would be identify the issue, and then collect information, find help, relay information, and follow up. So the first step is identify the issue. And I realized this morning, I woke up and I was thinking that I could have gone with a whole different theme for this whole presentation if I had known about the party in the woods last night. So instead of being a rabbit hole, I would have gone with a whole different Lost in the Woods thing instead, but you know. So finding the source of a problem can be crazy chaotic rabbit hole, right? We've all had a problem that you've hit that you end up spending hours on, and you realize that you hate Drupal, you hate development, you don't know why you're doing this, you should probably just go work in a kitchen somewhere and flip burgers or do something, because anything would be better than this, right? We want to avoid that, right? We don't want to go down that hole. The first step to getting help is really to not hit that point, right? We want to stop before you get to that point of frustration. I'm going to interrupt myself a little bit here and say, just because this has been, as I've done this presentation, I've realized that oftentimes the people who we want to be here aren't always the ones who are attending. And a lot of times it's the people who are getting the tickets who are coming here and who are getting the requests for help. It's the developers who are getting the clients asking, like, with the crazy questions, you know, the crazy email you get with all the exclamation points of urgent. And I would appreciate very much if this information could get passed on. I think we get rid of all those exclamation points. Like, I don't want, none of us ever want those urgent emails. Instead of them being freaking out, you know, it'd be so much better if we could stop the chaos, right? And find out as much as we can while avoiding the rabbit hole. And luckily, Drupal's awesome, and we have a lot of tools for that. So, I'm sure you've all seen the on-screen error messages. And again, don't need to know what it is at all, right? This is like incredibly basic. We don't need to know what this is. We don't. If you're like, you know, honestly, for me, I Google it, but if that doesn't show up anything, I'm gonna go ask somebody and be like, you know, hey, you know, I don't need to recreate wheels, right? There's the logging in Drupal, and again, you've all seen that. And then there's the server logs, which again, I mean, it may be gobbledygook to you, but to somebody it's going to be something. If you collect this information, right, you identify the problem, right, and use tools like New Relic, where, have any of you used New Relic? A little bit?
What is it?
It is a fantastic tool for identifying the problems. Basically, it's exactly what you see here, where you can see what's the most time-consuming thing going on right now. Well, in this issue, in this site, it's a Redis get call, right? So there's something going on here, and we see it's by far taking over. And we, you know, and you can follow it further down the line and see more details about things going on here. And so even if it doesn't mean anything to you, you've got tools that are pointing you to what the problem is, right? Like, we can see what the problem is here. Don't know what it means, that's okay. Don't need to figure that out. Need to collect the information, identify what the problem is. And remember, at this point, we're just trying to find the source of the problem, not the solution. We move on to collecting a little bit different information. Instead of identifying the actual problem here, we're going to say, you know, collecting the information of the you know, the who, what, when, where, and whys, right? And why do we need this is because if the person, the group, whoever you're asking for help can't reproduce the issue, they can't help, right? If they can't see enough about the problem to look at it, to figure it out, then they can't help, and that's when you get the frustration of, like, you know, you can't get an answer to your question. Well, because they can't see it. So the who in this is that you want to identify which roles are affected by this issue. Is it everyone? Is it just the logged in users? Is it just on the admin screens? You know, is it just one custom defined role that's getting screwed up? Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
So why in Drupal are error messages available to anonymous users?
You can have it not be.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Where
Yeah.
is that? Do you know?
It's in Drupal. it's in the back end. Yeah, and you can there's
It just seems like such an odd default option.
well, but as a developer, you want to be able to have that on so you can be an anonymous user and not be logged in and see things, right? But you're right, on production you don't want that. You don't want, and so yeah, you can turn that off.
I think the top level menu item is called reports.
Okay.
And then it's an option.
I'll look around.
I don't remember. Unfortunately, okay, so I love working at Pantheon, and it's awesome being on this other side of Drupal. I'm not in actual Drupal that often anymore. I'm on the servers and doing other stuff now.
Yeah, no problem.
So. But I should probably be in Drupal more often so I can answer questions like that. So we know who it's happening to, what's actually happening, right? What happens to those users, what functionality is blocked by the issue, what should be happening but isn't. Don't just, say, hey, this isn't happening. Say, hey, this should be happening, but instead I'm seeing this. Give the full picture of that. And where? Where is this fun little friend of ours showing up? And if something is missing, where should it be? Right? The worst ever is when you get a ticket of, this image isn't, I have missing images. I can't see that you have missing images. Where should that image be, please? And what do you have to do to make the little friend show up, right? Can you forcibly reproduce the error, right? Can you go through the steps? Can you make it happen on command, right? If you can do that, that's that's identifying half the problem right there. So then there's the finding help, which you guys are all probably aware of most of this, but at this point you have a lot of the information. You know who, what, when, where, you know how to reproduce it, right? Google can be a huge help with that. You can, if you're doing Drupal development, you're obviously an intelligent person. You're able to read a screen and look at things, right? That doesn't mean anything in Drupal though, because it's Drupal. I love Drupal. I love Drupal so much, but yeah, exactly. All right, so maybe this was enough on its own. Maybe you still need help. But if you do need help, it's good to know who you can ask. So you have local communities, right? Here, there's a San Francisco Drupal user group, which looks freaking gigantic. I haven't been to any of have any of you guys been to any of their meetups? You
I
have?
think we occasionally have them in the office.
Yeah.
The Pantheon.
Yeah.
Really?
It's really nice.
That's cool. So you guys are probably in the office more than I am?
So there's two. One is focused on kind of like a group discussion, and you can bring your problems to the group. And I don't know. And then the second one is talks.
Right.
And so I think it kind of varies.
Yeah. Most of the communities that I've been in have that similar kind of division of like, here's developers getting together, geeking out together, like, look at this cool thing I did, which is a lot of fun, but, and then there's usually a group for if you've got questions, if you're running into, you're hitting your head against the wall. Meetup is fantastic. And then the local Drupal meetups, and I had no clue there were so many. It's such a big area here. Like, to me, so I'm based out of upstate New York, and we have Drupal groups, but we don't have this level of Drupal groups. So it's really cool being here and getting to see all this and to be at Bad Camp. The person sitting next to you, right? Being here in Bad Camp is a great place, and I know we're the last session, right? Everybody's taking off and everything. These events are huge. I have so many people now from going to Drupal camps that I can turn to and ask questions, and it's such a diverse skill set. Like, we've all done different things. This is going to be the place where you can find somebody who done anything, right? They're all here, and you can make the connections that you need to be able to just ask them questions. And then, of course, there's the online community with Drupal, which is its own immense force to be reckoned with. Drupal.org. If you don't have an account there, you ought to, because it's awesome, and there's so much stuff there. Are any of you following any of the groups on groups? Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay. So in groups.drupal.org, it's there's a couple different ways they divide things. It's by geolocation, but it's also by field of interest and by, like, if you're higher ed or if you're nonprofit and things like that. So commerce is one that's in there, higher ed is one that's in there, there's front end stuff in there, there's project management stuff in there, everything, right? There's all these different groups in there where you can find people asking the same types of questions, or that you can ask, again, you're finding people who are doing similar things to you but have different experiences. Right. Just go back to a second. How many of you have put in issues on Drupal.org? Did you get an answer to it?
Maybe 70% of the time.
Yeah. How about you? Yeah.
Yeah, I've got an answer.
It's been hit or miss for me, I'll be honest. Sometimes I swear I search and well, yeah, or I search and I'm certain that my issue is not a duplicate, and I put it in and then I'll get closed out as a duplicate to another error, and then I go look at that one, I'm like, no, it's definitely not, and then you have to get into the back and forth of like, no, really, I need you to look at this, and it's a huge community. But don't give up if that happens, because then there's Stack Exchange, which also, yeah. And again, the same thing happens there. It's mostly that you have all these alternatives, right? You have options, you have tools in your belt, right? Every single person that is involved in these sites is now a tool in your belt that you can use.
I'll just say Stack Exchange is a great place to check, but beware, there's a lot of garbage in there.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's bad advice. There's a lot of bad advice.
That's hard to evaluate, like for me, because I got into this as like a side gig, helping my husband build a site, and I totally love doing it. But then I'll read people's stuff, and I'm like, well, and trying to think through what the full implications of some of them are, and like I know everybody has bad habits, and so it's like, am I gonna totally screw things up if I do this? And the good news is, like, I don't have anybody else working on it, so if I screw up, I know how to take it out.
Yeah. Well, and commerce stuff is touchy too, because it's harder to roll back because you can't roll back the database because you lose the transactions, and there's a whole other world of. Yes. Yeah. Are you using features on the site? Cool. Okay. So that helps a lot with things.
Yeah,
but
because I made a really bad mistake at the front where I downloaded Commerce Kickstart, and that puts a bunch of stuff in the box in it, which was helpful as a new user because it was like, oh, I see how this is set up. I understand the structure. I can ignore some of it.
Yeah.
That means you're doing feature override on it a lot.
Yeah.
And you get to find out how many character counts are in a block.
I'd just say good advice on Stack Exchange is to not just read the top one, and not just read that one page you got. Read a few more things to see if they're all kind of going along the same direction.
Yeah.
Because if they are pointing in the same way, then you're probably on a good path. But otherwise,
That's really good advice. That's definitely.
The number of thumbs up is not a bad indicator too, because the inherent problem with Stack Exchange is anybody who's contributing to it is kind of trying to up their game, and they do that by answering more questions, and so then they start answering questions that they think they know the answer to, but they're not necessarily qualified, and that's why those thumbs up really matter, because those are typically people that are like, do I need to answer this question, or did this person answer it? So they're trying to, themselves be lazy and just get points for just, as experienced users, thumbs upping it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All of that matters. So, yeah. So it's Stack Exchange tricky, but you can. It's resourceful. I mean, I've and what I like about it actually, because looking at all things from both ends, it's fast. Like you put in a question, you get answers like within seconds sometimes.
Yeah.
So that's pretty amazing. And sometimes, if your answers if your question is something someone knows, it works. It does work.
Yeah. So a little bit Pantheon specific for a moment, because Pantheon's awesome, and everybody should love Pantheon as much as I do, because Pantheon's awesome. We have a great tool. It's an agency finder, which is basically these are all of our partners who have successfully gone through a process with us. They have multiple sites on Pantheon. I don't know. I assume Acquia has something similar where they're doing some other system like this. But obviously, if you're on shared hosting with somebody else, they're not going to, like GoDaddy or, and one of those aren't going to have something like this. But you don't have to use Pantheon to use our agency finder. However, if you worked with one of these groups, they're probably going to say, oh, have you considered Pantheon? Because they are coming from here. But these are all, they're all great. And obviously, not everyone's going to be a perfect match to what you're doing. Don't just go in there and, talk to people. Always get options. I'm huge on having options. I don't like the one thing. Well, that's why I love Drupal. 4,000 ways to do one thing. Yes. If you're on Pantheon, again, we have Pantheon support. We have our documentation, and we have our support system there.
Is documentation available publicly? Or
Yeah, absolutely. And some of that's applicable whether or not you're on Pantheon. But it's all focused, obviously, on Pantheon. And yeah, you can create your account, spin up a free site. You have all the docs, you have access to support. You don't have to have a paid site to get support. So again, that's, you can be a sandbox site and you still can submit the same ticket as somebody else. So going back to the Stack Exchange thing, part of the issue with Stack Exchange and with Drupal.org is how to ask the questions. Right? So when words aren't enough, my site isn't loading, something broke when I enabled it, I can't clear my cache, I can't run update. You need to do more, right? We want to do more. Think big. What are you trying to do? Instead of saying, I need to edit my php.ini, try something more. Like, give some more information. I need to edit my php.ini. Well, my response to that is, why do you think you need to do that? Like, what's making you think that? What are you trying to do? I don't know what you're trying to do, so I can't help you with that one. Instead, try something like, I'm encountering timeouts, and I saw on Drupal.org, or I saw on Stack Exchange, that increasing my PHP memory limit might help. Even better would be giving a full structure around this, so like the full context. I have this heavy query, and obviously if you can include information about it, right, that keeps timing out. And I saw here that I need to increase my PHP memory limit, right? You're giving more information for whoever you're asking to look at this and actually assess the situation and get back to you with an answer that's more applicable to you than, you can't. Or, something like that. And again, because there's 4,000 ways to do everything with Drupal, the more information you have, the better solution you'll have. So even better than something like that, if it's especially an instance like this, is a picture's worth 1,000 words. So,
It's awesome. Okay, cool.
yeah. I'm clicking this is what I'm getting when I type my username and password. Now in this one, if she hadn't sent in the screenshots, I never would have known what this ticket was about, right? And it was just that, I can't log in, right? So log in where and what's going on and where's this stuff coming from? So this is a huge help. Give a screenshot. If it's something like this where you can show a picture of when I do this, or this picture, or see this spot, or see this block shouldn't be here. I made this go away, but it's still here, or this should be over on the left instead of the right, or you know, this font is different than the rest of the fonts, you know, anything like that. So this is what I'm talking about with the theme of I would have gone with a totally different theme if I'd known about our wandering through the woods last night. So putting it all together, we have Alice is the who, what, is only sometimes seeing the whole Cheshire Cat, and where in the tree, on the closest branch, and when, while he is starting or ending a conversation, and please see the attached images, right? We have the who, what, where, when, and a little bit more info, right? So in the Drupal world, all the logged in users on my site are seeing a block that was removed on the right side of the homepage immediately after logging in. Please see the attached screenshot, right? This gives whoever you're asking to assist the information they need to move forward. Right. So this is an example, obviously, of like client contacting developer, you know, of like, hey, they're not supposed to be seeing this. Make it better, right? That's if you can train clients to give this information, so many things will be better in your life. And as a client, or as somebody who's going to support with a question, giving this information means you'll get a better answer. So, which would you rather be? This person who gave all sorts of information, you know, I've been using Calabox, so we know they're playing with different things here. I tried doing some stuff, I got this error, and this is what I followed up with, right? I just want to make sure that I know how to update Drupal core since I plan to host other sites on, you know, here. Can you help, right? They're looking for the path forward with this. They're hitting a wall. They want to know the right way to do this. And they've explained the full question of what this is, right? Or would you rather be this person? That's the whole ticket.
I'd rather be
Appreciate-
David.
I love this ticket so much. It's like, this was literally it. Code on dev, and it's not, you know, there's no even typos. Code on dev not syncing. Pantheon site name blank. Thanks. That's awesome. You know, no information, nothing about anything. No errors. What happened when you tried? You know, were you pushing from local? What was happening? Anything? There's nothing.
This is not working.
I love the response.
Yeah.
I know.
The funny thing is that he actually knew what it was, so the rest of the thing is he did actually answer the problem, but I love, that's, yes. So this is, to me, an important part that I think gets left off. It's the follow-up, right? There's a few more things that you want to do, right? You want to make sure you know what can be done to prevent this in the future, if it's possible, right? Some things you can't, they're just, you know, hey, the server went down or whatever, there wasn't something you had control over to prevent it, right? But you want to know if there is. The other one, where can you record this information for later? Because I cannot tell you how many times I have beat myself over things like, I know I fixed this before. What did I do last time? Or digging through old commits to figure out what I did in this commit that solved this problem. Evernote's a great tool for that. I know a lot of people use Evernote. Does anybody else have anything that they use?
It's OneNote.
Okay. Yeah, same kind of OneNote. Some system. Oh, Notebook's another one that I used a lot on Mac.
Circus Pros?
Yeah.
That was tragic. They just
Was it? Oh, you can tell when I was on Mac last. So, okay. That was a great... It didn't play well with others, but it was a great tool. Anything that you have that can give you organized, searchable access to things that you've done, right? As a developer, a great practice is to get in the habit of, I'm not talking about like journaling levels of taking notes on what you did, but when you hit a problem, take some notes down. And even sometimes for me, and I know it's not for everybody, but sometimes for me, just the process of writing out the problem, I can figure out the solution, right? It just gives you that space to work in of, oh, I'm looking at this completely backwards. By writing the words down, I can see what's going on, I can shift things around and look at it a different way. And the last one, which is always wonderful, did I tell whoever helped me that it worked? Because sometimes, especially, I'll have friends contact me for a question about something, and I'll be working away at it, and I'll be like, you know, I'm sorry this is taking so long, I'm really digging in it. They're like, oh, no, I got it. It's like, oh, thanks. You know, let them know if you figured it out, or let them know if their solution worked, especially because they may be taking notes on it too, right? They may want to know, for their reference, this actually did work. That's important. I mean, if we're going to help each other, it has to go both ways, right? If we're going to give help,
Also, if it's something like Stack Exchange, it's really helpful for other people who are looking for the same error to be like, oh yeah, okay, so-and-so says this fixed it, I can try it too.
in Drupal.org, right, and the issues in there when you have a patch or something, it's so great to see patch number blah, blah, blah worked for me, patch number whatever worked for me, patch number whatever, and then, you know, that's the patch that I'm going to, you know, exactly. When you see the patch number 3 blew up everything, I'm like, oh, thank you. Thank you for posting that, because otherwise, I mean, I'm sorry you had to be the guinea pig on it, but thank you. So yeah, that feedback is really important for this whole circle of support to work, the whole system. And does anybody have any questions?
Do you use IRC?
I do.
So because I know back in the day, I used it a lot, like to try and get answers quickly. It's still listed on the Drupal page as, you know, how to connect to IRC. I just didn't know if it's still really
There's
active.
still always people in there. I pop in every once in a while, mostly because I usually have too many windows open and it gets lost, and then I feel bad that I'm not actually paying attention, so there's guilt levels involved. There's almost always somebody in there though, and it's still active.
I think there's a Slack channel too.
There is the Power User Group for Pantheon, and then I'm not sure about any other just general Drupal Slack stuff. And I'm sure there probably is, just because Slack is really cool.
You say the Power User Group. I mean, I do think it's it's not for your little bug, I would say.
Yeah.
But the quality of the responses there right now is extremely high, and it's really quite. But that's why we got to keep it high. I don't want that to be bogged down.
Yeah.
Noise of just.
But if you're trying to do
Yeah.
some unique configuration, you know, if you're trying to do something that is, you think, really cool or really weird, or, you know, this very specific need, it's a really good group for that.
The key there, I think, also is that you know, these are developers with a lot of experience. They're expecting that you're going to describe very well, kind of even more than we've seen here. Like,
Right,
you've
exactly.
tried a number of things and you've described what you tried. It's not like I ran into a wall. I ran into an issue, don't know what to do, so I thought I'd
Yes,
write it.
it's not
No,
an
I
issue
ran
of
into it. I tried this, tried
Yeah.
that. I'm kind of running out of options now. You've proven that you're worthy of a response.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, I think that's inherent in the name. It's the Power User Group. It's it's people who are really slamming away at stuff. So the one last thing I wanted to include on here, which I'm hoping everybody saw throughout the whole camp, and if you didn't, go ahead and please go and fill this out. It's a short little survey about who you are as a user of the web, and just do it. It's really short survey. And if this had been earlier in all the sessions, I could have said you could go to this. That was yesterday, though, one, right? I think.
Quick question for IRC, is that a potential platform to find mentors? Because one thing that I found coming to Bad Camp, I really want to learn how to do this, and everybody just wants me to pay them.
Yeah.
And like that's a fair deal. I get it. Because I don't expect to work for free
Right.
either, though I am. So I get the other side.
Yeah.
But I do want to learn, and that's a tough.
I would say that the meetups are the best option for that. That's where so I really lucked out. I stumbled into Drupal kind of by chance. I was taking over a non-Drupal website for a group I was involved in, and I ended up talking to the guy who was doing the hosting from that I was taking over from, and I mentioned to him that I was doing some other work, and he said, "Oh, my wife and they had their own company. We just switched everything over to Drupal because it was so much more customizable and everything." And I was like, "Oh, I'll check it out." And I installed it, and of course I got the screen staring at me of, great, you installed it, now what? But
This site has no content.
Yes, thanks. I did it right? Or, but they actually ended up, I made a really good connection right there from that, because I ended up telling them that I installed Drupal, and they were like, "Wow, you did?" Just from that one conversation. I was like, "Well, yeah, I just wanted to try it, whatever." But the job I had right after that, so I kind of snuck in this way with it, which is different than your situation, than kind of falling into your own site. The job I had a Drupal site, and the best way to learn Drupal is not on a blank site, which is why the Commerce Kickstart is super helpful, but not necessarily for your grown-up site, but for playing on and learning it works great. But sometimes there's a lot of stuff in there, a lot of noise that you don't need on your actual final site. And so it's hard, but the best way to learn Drupal is a site that already exists, which is, if you can find somebody that can let you, give you a copy of an old site or something to play with or something, that's always awesome. But that's, and if you can kind of have that kind of mentorship where you can ask them questions about, "I see you did this, what choices did you make here?" Or if you can partner up on, say, like, "Hey, I'm doing Drupal stuff. Do you want to, work together on Drupal sites and work together on something?" The best Drupal development comes out of working together, precisely because of that whole but the whole lovely thing of there's 4,000 ways to do everything, right? 4,000 is exaggeration, but there's probably at least 4 ways to do everything in Drupal. And you have to figure out which way is the best, right, for your site. And what worked on one site, it's not going to always work on the other one. And even if you find a way that works on one site you build, on your future sites, that may not be the best choice, and getting stuck in that rut of "this is how I do this" may not always be the right path. So if you can find a mentor, that's absolutely, the best thing to do. And the meetups are great for that. Or, like I said, if you can, that's not an option necessarily, but if you can work with somebody on another site that's already.
Interesting. Yeah, it's the user group that is like troubleshooting typically are people who are early beginners, and that I'm like, oh, I
They
can
don't have
help
they don't have as many advanced ones.
So like usually it's one guy at chapter 3, and then the rest of us. Which I think I want to talk to him a little bit more about it, but I think it'd be really cool if we had more like working partner groups.
Yeah.
Or it was more like office hours than, I don't know, because it's hard to actually troubleshoot something in the 2 hours that you're there hanging out.
You don't have to necessarily, but just that syncing up and talking through something, it's not necessarily finding a solution, but sitting together and talking through can be incredibly.
It's interesting, like most people, it becomes like that particular session is very hypothetical because people aren't actually pulling up their sites, showing their errors, and like, it's just talking. And so it becomes this question of like, can you adequately describe your problem?
Without actually showing
Without looking at it.
Yeah.
And like most people are like, man, I was working on this at 2 a.m. I'm like, I don't quite remember, but it's like bright red, so it's clearly bad.
Commiserating with their issue.
Yeah.
I belong to the LA Drupal group, wonderful set of guys, just awesome, really.
Yeah.
I would never miss a meetup. I go every month. and it's great. I learn so much. But when I have a problem, I mean, honestly, it's like she said, they go there, they've got an agenda, and it's usually very high level. I mean, it's usually really advanced stuff. And then everybody wants to have a beer. No, nobody wants to sit down and look at my problem.
Yeah.
It's just not my best resource for solving problems. So
Yeah.
I totally feel her pain because, like I said, I wouldn't miss a meetup ever, but I don't generally have a lot of luck
Yeah.
with going there to solve my problems.
Luckily for me, we have a developer lunchtime during, so it's a nice 1 hour lunchtime meetup, and that's for the developers, and that's kind of our show and tell one, and the higher level stuff. And then there's a community group one that's at night, which is what most of the people who are in the process of building and learning and going to. But there's a lot of the higher level, almost all of the developers that go to that developer lunch are also going to that evening one, which is why I'm kind of, that's a shame that you don't have
It's
that.
less of a mix.
So part two, and I don't know if this is useful to you or not, but this is what I did.
Yeah.
I started my own meetup that doesn't have a schedule, and it has I have about 65 people that belong to the meetup, whatever that
Yeah.
signed up. And what I do is I say, it just says, if you have a problem or something you're trying to figure out and you're not having any luck and you want me to schedule a meetup, I'll get the word out to some of the folks that I know and see if I can get a bite on a mentor to show up and we'll have a meetup based on just your problem.
Right.
Like, I'm down with that. I'm okay with that,
Yeah.
And it's only, with that said, we've only had one meetup as a result of that methodology.
Was it successful though?
It was very much so, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like a lot of energy, but that also seems really cool.
Yeah, that was the cool thing. This guy was having an issue with some geo mapping Google thing he was trying to do, and it was only supposed to show up on certain pages when certain people are logged in. And it was like a really weird thing he was trying to do, because otherwise it was pretty easy to set it up and get it to work. But he had a very, very specific use case scenario, and I was just like, I can't help you, but I threw it out there, and a couple of guys said, yeah, I've worked with a situation like that. I think I can help. And they got together, and it worked,
So a model I saw in Montreal for a while is Drupal clinics, and it was pretty much bring your own problem.
Yeah.
And while it is true that you tend to have more newbies, honestly, people have different experiences, and they can kind of, actually I did run into that, and they understand different pieces of it. Now, you're not guaranteed to come away with a solution to your particular problem, but yeah, you never, that's a big ask, really.
Yeah, I mean, I found that I learned a lot more about what I knew going to those meetups, but a lot of people in my community are not doing commerce. Like that, they're like, why would you do that as a beginner?
Online, I mean, I wish there was more, I wish IRC was more like how it used to be. Like, it was a great tool, in its time. It still is a great tool now. It's just not as popular as well. Thank you for coming by. Yeah.
When the audience involved.